the actual
Okay, cool.
sound.
Cool. Hi, my name is Shay D, and this is the Turning Point Podcast. We're here at Levi's today, and I have a very special guest with me. Very, very special, in fact. The one and only Shauna Briain, aka MC Angel. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so gassed that you're here.
Me too.
You know what? I'm actually gassed you're here because I do feel like so many like monumental points in my life, you were there and you were a big part of it actually. And the whole podcast is about turning points in life. And also, I feel like we've had so many conversations, and we'll get into your book and stuff as well. But we always talk about, as your book is, significant moments, and significant moments are turning points as well. So actually, you're like the perfect guest to have on the show.
Thanks, babe. That was the best intro I've ever had anywhere, but I wouldn't expect less from you.
Oh, I love that. So we're not going to go way back into time, not into gyros and all that time. But so when you think of your life, where you're at now, your journey that you've had, obviously for the listeners, like we'll give some context as well about what you started doing career-wise and just journey-wise and where you're at now. How would you describe, in like, imagine like the back of a DVD and it's like your life story. How would you describe your journey? Because you've had a lot of lives.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's kind of like 1,000 lives in one lifetime. If it's a tagline.
Yeah.
That would be a tagline. Live through many different realities, many different adventures, and just on a quest for happiness, joy, enjoying life and making the most of it despite always having to face some challenges.
So you grew up in Camden. So North London.
Yeah.
Girl. Oh wait, would you say Northwest London or North London?
Northwest.
You're North Wheezy.
Definitely Northwest.
You're
NW1.
Yeah, I hear that. That's
NW1.
that's why when I said
Northwest.
North
That's the
London,
postcode.
It's true. I was just like, hold on, it is NW actually, but I know like some Camdeners say they're North London.
I'm from Northwest. Yeah.
I hear that. So how was it for you? Because you just said quest for happiness. When you were growing up in Camden, were you on a quest for happiness, or where was you? What was your quest then?
My quest was to survive that time, because growing up on that estate wasn't a good experience. Estates are not good experiences. It's like it's literally like growing up with 1,000 feral kids with no money, no opportunities, and drug addicts and criminals to guide you on how to be in life, and benefit frauds. And then there's a few good community people that are out there trying to do their thing, but most people are trying to survive. So everyone's looking at the way to survive in that environment. And when you got a lot of people without much trying to survive together, yeah, it's a Game of Thrones situation.
Yeah,
so
no, I hear that.
It was madness growing up there. It was madness. It wasn't a good experience. Very violent environment as well. I wouldn't want to have to repeat that and live that again.
So when you're growing up, you're on an estate in Camden, like you're like you just described, all of that stuff happening. You say like your quest was to survive, but did you have a sort of goal? So I met you as a rapper. Yeah. You were rapping and you were putting on events. You are now an author. Yeah. Yeah, and you've circuited spoken word, etc. When you were growing up on the estate, were any of those things, any of those roles, something you wanted to do? Or like, what did you know what you wanted to do? Where was you at in that time to lead you to spitting? Like,
no, I wanted to be an actress. And I just used to always have these little dreams of me acting. And in school, I was trying to get any little parts that I could. And in primary,
did you get any parts in any Christmas plays?
In primary, I was like the lead in everything.
Was you?
Yeah, but in secondary was a bit of a different experience for me because my home life was very different then. And so I couldn't really tune into that much stuff at secondary.
Wait, what was your lead parts in primary school? I always played like a branch or something.
No, so we did a Midsummer's Night Dream, and I got to play one of the boys. So I got to play Demetrius, who was one of the main guys, because the girls didn't want to play going out with girls. So I was like, I'll play the guy. Give me a sword. Let me go get the fair maiden.
Love
I was like,
that.
that was perfect for me. I didn't know how gay I was back then, but that was working for me.
That's so mad. That actually suited you perfectly.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Like,
Right.
I really enjoyed acting, but then I pursued acting a little bit, and then I realized that I didn't enjoy performing other people's words, and I didn't enjoy performing other people's stories. I wanted to write my own words, but I always enjoyed storytelling. Like, I think I'm from a very large Irish family, and when we go over to Ireland, like, everyone's like sick at telling stories. My mom has like 7 sisters and 4 brothers, so going to Ireland and having that kind of a family, everyone's quick-witted, everyone's got something to say. If you can't bring something big to the table, like, you're quiet in the corner. You know, you're like, no one's knowing that you exist. And like, you got to be able to tell a story, bring some wit, and get everyone entertained. So I'm like, guys, I'm the top entertainer, listen. So it was like the perfect training ground to kind of get noticed. And yeah, I feel that everyone's been a storyteller in my life. It's in my lineage, it's in my ancestry. So then that was like a natural progression to spoken word and them kind of expressions. But none of that could flourish in the estate until I could have some time as an adult to start exploring these gifts that were surrounding me.
When you were when you were in your family environment, you've got quite a lot of siblings as well.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were, because you said it was like a training ground, did you feel like you were nurtured to go straight into something like music or rap? Because obviously it is storytelling, but it's different. So when was the point that you thought, yeah, no, let me do music?
Basically, it was like growing up in my mum's house. My mum went back to uni when I was about 11 or 12, and she had loads of friends that would be in our kitchen, like playing guitar and singing. And I grew up listening to like a lot of Irish music and the Beatles. Like, my mum's music taste was really, really good. So I grew up on rich music. And then I was in loads of like raves, because I was in the underground rave scene as a kid. So I saw how all the parties got put together and they happened. And I didn't really know about MC. And then I started doing spoken words. I started performing a few poems here and there. And I used to hear garage MCs, and I thought, maybe I can rap a little grime. And then I started finding out about hip hop, and I was like, yo, this is the one you can tell stories on.
Right.
And then that was like that natural love grew from that space. And then I remember I loved Skinny Man's album, Council State of Mind. I thought that was a really significant album at that time.
And it was so local as well.
Proper local. And then he was always encouraging everyone outside the raves and stuff. And yeah, I just thought, like, I like this medium. I like this medium a lot. So I just started rapping.
So how did you do spoken, like, because I didn't even know what spoken word is. Bare people still don't know what spoken word is. They're like, what do you mean? What kind of poetry, etc.? Like, how did you know what spoken word is to even get into it? Because you said you was in raves as a kid.
Yeah.
So was you being snuck in? Like, what was going on?
When I was in raves as a kid, like, I was in squat parties, and my mom was friends with the people that were running the sound system. So I used to like run the cloakroom or run the door. So I was literally like working in the parties. But to hear about spoken word, I don't even know how I started knowing about it. I think when I started going to places, I started gathering flyers.
Right.
And then I went to a spoken word event. I heard someone do it. I thought, I can do that. So
they're just talking.
Well, no, because there's a certain rhythm to it, and there's a certain way they tell the story, and then they do like certain repetitive ways of telling stories. So it's like rap. You've got to stick to a certain sort of metering system or certain beats. Whereas when you're doing spoken word, it's like you've got to create everything just from the way that you use your words, which is like the rhythm, the pace, the energy. So I really liked it. I was like, cool, I'm going to do this. And then I wrote my first piece about guys chatting up girls in the street, and I put whistles and in it and all kind of stuff to just like color it. And it went down well. And then I just started getting bookings. So for me, it's been quite an effortless journey, which is a blessing.
I love that. So, all right, we're going back to you growing up on the estate.
Yeah.
Family life. Like, who was Shauna at like 16?
At 16, I had left school with no GCSEs.
Did you just decide to drop out?
Well, basically, my dad was looking after us, and my mum went to Ireland and left us with him. But he was like taking us in his car to sell heroin. Then he was smoking crack in front of us. All his needles were all over the floor, and it was just like a really traumatic thing that
Is that
happened.
with all your siblings?
Yeah, with all my siblings there. So my younger brother and sister were like 10 and 11, and they found his needles and they pulled them out, and it was just like mad. Like, it was just such a mad experience. I was so traumatized. I was like, I can't focus.
Did you know then when he was doing that? Did you know what it was, like what was going on?
I knew that my dad was a heroin addict, but I didn't fully understand what heroin was.
Okay.
And then he was like, oh, I've missed a vein, and was showing me where he missed a vein in his arm and stuff. It was just mad. And then to try and then sit down and do exams after having an experience like that was just too crazy. So, and then my mum was drinking and she was never at home, and our house just got like taken over by all the boys on the estate, all the Irish boys.
Oh, wow.
And our house was like the DOS house.
Okay.
And it was mad. So at 16,
so it was just people coming in and out all the time.
Everyone all day. All the Irish boys were like, yo, we're coming up, let us in. We'd let them in all in. We're just bunning hash from first thing in the morning. Like, had hardly any clothes.
Oh my God.
You know, when like our family was like literally a joke on that estate as well. We were like literally, in terms of like poverty levels, one of the poorest families on the estate.
So you experiencing that like on a daily basis. So you left school. What, like, because 16, like we're adults now, like, and when you really think of 16, like, obviously at 16 we were like doing stuff, but that it's your baby, like, you're a child still. You've only really, from your 10 years old to 16 is only 6 years. There's only so much you can absorb in that 6 years to be really mature. So you're 16 going through all of that. Did you see a way out? Like, what did you do to move from that environment? Like, how did you pattern yourself, like, at 16 then? What happened?
But I didn't. Nothing got patterned.
Okay.
Everything just got worse for the next 4 years.
So all the way to 20?
21 was when I started being able to tap into myself and explore myself. Because
so between 16 to 21, what was you doing?
Well, I was just smoking drugs, drinking a lot, getting arrested. Was
you still living at home then?
No, I lived at my dad's for a little while. My dad moved out, and it was in this mad crackheads block. So there was like a crack house above me that got raided loads of times. It got set on fire. I was living in Dalston by myself. So, you know, like, and then all my siblings went into foster care, and then my brother went to psychiatric hospital. I became their main carer.
Okay.
And then I had to be like, I can't care for my siblings. I'm 19. They're 13 and 15. And my other brother in psychiatric, like, we're all traumatized. You can't put us all in a house. I don't know what madness social services were on.
Right.
So I had to say to social services, you need to put my siblings into foster care, and I need to go find who I am.
Right.
Because I can't do this. I can't uplift us all when I can't even uplift myself.
Right. So at 19, you made that decision.
Yeah. So I had another 2 years of madness. And then one day I just lost the plot, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I lost the plot one night, and then I was like, I need to fix up my life.
Do you remember that night?
I do, because I took some drugs and with this guy, and then he was trying to have sex with me, and I was like, this is when I was first really understanding that I was gay. I was like, no, I'm a lesbian. Like, you can't give me drugs that then want to have it. And I was just like, damn. And I went to my mom's house, and everyone was drinking all day, every day. I was like, I was just looking out my block. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this.
Like an out of body, like when you zoom out?
It was just mad. So
that's mad.
So I enrolled to do community theatre at Hackney College, which was at Hoxton Hall.
Okay.
So I enrolled there for September, and I was just like, I just want to do something. So I went downstairs to a woman who lived on my estate, and I said, I just want to put on some drama projects here. She said, you can have the hall for free. So she gave me the hall. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Like, we had a community hall, so I started running some drama projects there.
Sick.
No one came. So the next day I printed flyers, and went and put them all over the block.
Yeah.
Then people started coming. Then that woman, Scylla from our block, called this woman called Red Jen. She goes, I've got this girl. She needs some help. Come and help her. So Red Jen was running this organization called S-Team, which was helping young people gain self-esteem and confidence through the arts. And she was at the Winch, which is in Swiss Cottage. So Jen took me under her arm. And at that time, my mum kicked me out. She literally was like, Shauna, your bed is on the floor by tonight. I was like, So Jen took me to New Horizons, which was in Charlton Street, and then I got put in a homeless person's hostel in King's Cross.
Okay.
With like sex workers, crack addicts. It was a really hardcore place to live. So I spent a year there.
Hostels are, I mean, obviously it's
Some
a safe
are
haven, and then sometimes it is
some are
a hub of trouble.
Yeah, that one wasn't all right. That one was like a university for sex work and drug addiction.
Wow.
I'm lucky I didn't graduate there.
Right.
So I managed to get a distinction from college that year for my community theatre course, and then I got £5,000 from the Prince's Trust, and I put on my first big project on my estate.
Oh, wow.
Then I won the Community Champions Awards and put on some more. Then I moved to a better hostel. Met this amazing girl called Sasha. She's really cool. She's a hip hop dancer. So me and her just started like hitting hip hop together. And then I left my hostel because there was no way I was going to get housing from that. And then me and Sasha started renting together.
Okay.
And we rented a flat together in Hackney Wick for like 2 years.
Okay.
And I was like 24.
So one of your turning points was going to meet this lady who let you have this hall. So it was kind of like your first opportunity.
My first
that
opportunity.
you grabbed.
The first opportunity turned to another opportunity.
Right.
Because she then called that woman.
Red Jen.
Who supported me through everything and trained me on how to facilitate workshops, which meant that, and train me in youth work. So I have zero qualifications, but it meant that I could always earn some money.
Right. So it's because obviously you're a youth mentor, you are a workshop facilitator. So you literally have been able to take what someone gave you to rescue you almost, or give you an opportunity, and to basically pass it on as well. Is that why you went into youth work then? Because she taught you how to make money from doing something you wanted to do. Because
like, I think probably if I had just focused on music or just focused on writing, probably I would have took my career in much different directions. But that's never had my whole heart. Working in the community has always had such a large part of my heart, because from my lived experience, I've lived the difference one person can make to your life. Yeah. And from being a service user to then being someone that works providing services, there's not many people that have made that transition. I feel very fortunate to be one of them. So it's a massive turning point for me, like one of the biggest. So I've dedicated the past 20 years to paying that forwards. Yeah. So you and Sasha rented somewhere for 2 years. Yeah. What happened after that? Like what journey did you go down? So me and Sasha were living together. We're doing loads of hip hop stuff. Sasha was a hip hop dancer. She was in the show Into the Hoods. Like, she smashed it. Living with her was an amazing experience. And then I went back to live at my mom's for a little while, but my mom was like dying from alcoholism at the time. So it was quite dark. But at that same time, I was doing the opening show at the Roundhouse with David Harewood and working with the BBC and Alan Yentoff, because they were like filming us. Then I started working at the Candy Bar in Soho, which was the only lesbian bar. It's now shut down. It was the only lesbian bar. I was like, damn, I need some lesbians in my life. When I found me some lesbians, and then that's where I started running my first events there. So I worked there for a year, then I started running all female events every Sunday there. Okay. So while I was living at my mom's, having that really mad experience with her, I was starting to kind of find my feet in my own creativity and building my own sort of like ideas and shaping them. In terms of like, you obviously you're like, I need some lesbians in my life, but in terms of that, because obviously we had the saga where a guy was trying to move to you and you're like, I don't want to do this, I'm not feeling it, to working at Candy Bar. How was your family, or like did you have that moment where you had to announce what sexuality you are? Would you feel like it was really organic? Like, listen, it's never organic to have to tell everyone that you're something different than what society thinks you should be. My mom was gassed because she just wanted to be like so alternative to her family. Okay. So she's coming to him, guess what? Shauna's gay. It was like another little shock for her to be able to come and give to everyone. It's like, Mom, you just ruined it for me. Right. But my dad, it took me about 20 years to be really comfortable saying to my dad, like, no, Dad, my girlfriend, no. Like, okay. He would just skate over it. My siblings were pretty cool. Is it quite in, like, obviously, like, for example, in Middle Eastern families and stuff, it's so,
it was much more frowned upon like before. It's different now sometimes. Is it the same with Irish people? Like Irish people, is it the same? Like do they see it?
It depends which family you grow up in, but in Catholic
as a
Irish,
as a culture, yeah.
Irish is a Catholic culture. It's against religion. So the country is progressing, but the main vein of the sort of energy of that country is that it's a no. And on my estate, being gay was absolutely hell no. There's zero LGBT people there.
Yeah.
There's no rainbows. Even after it rains, no rainbows come out. There's zero rainbows in the ends.
I hear you.
So yeah, I think being gay on my estate was probably harder than being gay in an Irish family.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us had that growing up. Like in school, it was like looked down on. Like the word gay was used as man, that's so gay, like as a cast. Like, and I remember when I met you and we had this conversation, because I think once I said something, I was like, nah, that's gay, man. And you were like, is it Shay? Is it? and I was like, I swear I've heard you say that. And you were like, it's so conditioned in us. I remember you taught me, you were like, there's so much power in our words. So I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm not going to say that. Like, I've chosen not to use that. And I was like, oh my God, I need to stop saying that actually as well. Like, I get it. But it's just, there was no one around to like pull you up on anything. It was just, that's what it was. Like, and in all rap, everything, like, that's what it was. So you went into even a world of hip hop where not only was it not that common for girls to do it, but then to be gay in hip hop was such a mad thing. So it's like you chose like the biggest challenges. I was like, yeah, I'll take that as well. And I'll take that as well. But I'm glad like your mum wanted to be alternative. So I'm glad she embraced it at the time. But yeah, I just feel like it's such a challenge, like to be all of that stuff, you know? So when you were at Candy Bar and decided to put the Sunday event on, what happened from that to lead into you doing your event?
So doing that was when I first started experimenting doing all-female hip-hop events. And I mean like all-female lineup and just having cyphers with all girls rapping and then female DJs and stuff as well. So that was like my first experiment of working with that, and had some really nice rappers come down, some cool people. So like it's awesome to have spaces to experiment your ideas and to think like, oh, let me try out this idea. Because when you're in a position growing up and you don't go uni, or you don't have your parents paying for you to experiment your ideas, and then you find people in the community who let you experiment your ideas, it's like such a blessing. So I went to an event one night, and then there was this woman who was at the event, and then she, like, someone asked me to perform a spoken word piece for their birthday party. The woman was like, would you put on a poetry night at my event, at my venue? Right. And I was just like, no, I'm not really on it, because my last event had kind of started fading out because the venue was getting sold and the whole vibe in the venue was going a bit weird. But she kept hassling me until I put on an event. And then Eleanor, who used to run Passing Clouds, came down to a few of the events, and she was like, would you move this event to Passing Clouds? Okay. And I was just like, oh no, I don't really know. And then they started trying to change the bar split in the place. So I was like, no, if you honor the first thing that they said, which is you pay me £100 to put this on, I'll do it. Right. And then she said yes. Okay. And then they mentored me at Passing Clouds. Okay. On how, so like, if I had 20 people, 10 people come to the event, they're not going to tell me off. They then were just mentoring me on how to make it better. And then they were just encouraging me to get other artists involved in running it with me and other artists' ideas in. So it's not like, oh, it's just you that run it yourself. More collaborative. Like, how do you get other people involved, and then how do you start making it a collective from that space forwards? Okay. So while all this stuff was happening with you progressing with your event, like, do you feel like you had any moments, like, did anything happen on a personal scale, your family life, or anything that was affecting? Because I feel like when you describe what you do, like, your journey with your career has been so progressive, and, you know, there's still a lot to go to you being an author. But then kind of like what you described, when you can go to school, have to do an exam, but you come home to all this like madness happening in your house.
even as an adult life, it's so similar. Like, you have to go to work, or i.e. go to run an event or do music or perform, but then there's all this stuff happening like in the background. It's so schizophrenic. Like, it's such a double life. Sometimes you have to leave when you're a performative artist, or when you're putting things on where you rely on an audience or other people. So as you were like learning and being mentored and running this event and building it to be successful, what was happening on the other side, and how did you kind of manage it?
Well, just when Lyrically Challenged, which was the event that we ran together, that's when that got to at that stage of the career. But yeah, just as that started kicking off, my mum died. But she died from alcoholism, and yeah, that was a big turning point in my life. I had to move into her old flat, the flat I grew up in, where a lot of stuff went down. And then
is that your the home that you said all the boys were coming up into and stuff?
I had to move back into there. She died in it as well, so I moved back into that. At the same time, I'm trying to be self-employed. I'm trying to manage my own workshops. I'm trying to get bookings. I'm trying to book artists. Like, I'm trying to do all these things. And I just feel like when you've grown up in a certain level of trauma, you know, like they say, depression's like the black dog. It's like you're going through your dreams, and you're trying to every day work on the light within you, but it's like that black dog is always nipping at your heels. No matter how hard or fast you try and run, it's like that black dog's there, and it's biting your ankles, and it's nipping at you, and that's like the metaphor for the depression. That's like constantly there, because there's a level of, no matter what heights you reach, there's this level and depth of darkness that's always there too. So it's like living within this polarity, and it's not a singular experience for myself. A lot of people who've grown up in poverty, that's the reality of it. It's like the repercussions of it are always reverberating through your reality, no matter how far you get yourself from that place.
How did I know your mum passed away, rest in peace, from alcoholism. What kind, like, I grew up with alcoholism, so I'm just wondering, like, what did she pass away from? Was it something specific? Is it just everything failing, or
like a heart attack at the end? Okay.
And was you aware that this might happen and would happen, or did you how was your relationship with alcohol and alcoholism because of this? Like, were you aware that this can cause this to happen? Was you worried? Did you just think people drink until they're 90 and they just whatever? Like,
I was living wild in it, and I was partying a lot, like, especially on the gay scene. The hedonism on the gay scene is insane, but I think it's more to do with the fact that there's so much shame surrounding your identity that people just get so drunk to blanket that reality. So yeah, my drug and drink use was really bad. And then my mum dying from drinking, it was a stark reality. Lived in a house for a year, got my own flat, and then after 1 year of living there, I stopped drinking alcohol, which has been like 10 years now. I just quit one day. I was like, I just need to stop this.
That's amazing.
And
did you literally just decide?
Yeah, I just went to sleep one day and was like, I'm going to quit for a year. And then I just decided 10 years later to just not go back. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made of my life. Like, me and you never would have started doing things together if I never stopped drinking, because you've never drunk in your life. So it's like, if I had never stopped doing that, I wouldn't have had people in my reality like you.
Right.
You know, like, you would have never existed. I still would have been existed with people who are tuning into depression and then using drugs and alcohol to exacerbate it or mask it or cover it. But it then is so hard to heal when you're constantly in that cycle.
Where do you feel like you get the strength to fight through these? Because the things that you've experienced and you talk about, like, we can just have a conversation about them, but every single thing is so layered and so traumatic and so big. Where do you draw your strength from to fight through that? What do you think it is that makes you be able to get past that barrier, like, of not?
Some days you do surrender. Some days, I wouldn't even say you, I'll speak for myself, not plural for the rest of the world, but some days I do surrender, because no matter what I do, I don't have to fight, because this world is so messed up and it's so unfair and it's so cruel to so many good people. There's no straight rules of how this life is, which is what sucks about it. Good people have mad things happen to them, which just don't make sense, you know, like this world just really don't make sense. But I do my best to uplift my energy so that I can make sense for myself and hopefully bring some light to others. And my main source of that is my Buddhist practice and chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So I'm in a Buddhist organization called the SGI, which is the Soka Gakkai International. It's an international Buddhist organization. I've been practicing for 12 years now. And I started practicing actually like a week before my mom died. It was very mystical. Very mystical how that happened.
Wow, wait, so what happened a week before your mum passed away then? How do you suddenly go into Buddhism? Like, so you're just bowling down the street and someone says, hey.
I just bowled down the street. I went, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Yeah, it never happened like that. I was living with this girl called Lena Cullen. She's an amazing singer. And Lena, her mom has always practiced Buddhism. Okay. And then when I lived with Lena, she was practicing Buddhism. Okay. And I'd always hear her chanting. And then one day she was like, oh, do you want to come to my friend's house and chant? I was like, cool, let's go. So we went to her friend's house to chant, and I chanted for an hour for the healing of family karma. And then 1 week later, bam, my mom died.
Oh my God, I've got goosebumps.
And there was a guy living in her house that was practicing at the same time as well, which was just really, like, we don't believe in coincidences. We believe in like synchronicity. So yeah, all that happened. It was mad.
So so when you went to Lena's and you were chanting and that happened, but did you take it serious? Like, how did you go into Buddhism, like, as a practice?
Well, there was a woman across the road when I was staying at Lena's, and I started chanting with her. Then Lena started coming down to my mom's house. It wasn't far, and she started chanting with me. And then you chant with people in your local area. And then there was a woman there that started chanting with me. So there were people that was like supporting me to develop it as a practice.
Right.
And then I started developing my own practice. And now I've taken on lots of leadership in the organization. Now I'm like the Vice National Young Women's Leader for the organization.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of your fight comes from your practice?
Absolutely, because I'm changing my vibration. Like, I'm making a vibration, a noise, a sound. And it just elevates me from the condition of life that I'm in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like so sensitive. I'm such a sensitive person. And it just helps me to get out of my emotional body a little bit. Okay. And I've also practiced a lot of yoga over the years, and I believe that that's really helped move a lot of trauma through my body. Okay. And move it out of my body. And a lot of cardio as well, just to elevate your vibes, and then doing music and being in community and being with people. And I was reading this thing that I wrote in my book this morning, and I was reading like, poetry is more than life to me. Poetry healed me. The applause of the people, like, touching my heart, being seen, being acknowledged. Like, when you've come from somewhere where no one acknowledges you, and then you find these spaces as an adult where people acknowledge you, then it's like we go back into community to work with kids. I go to my Buddhist practice to support others to find their space. And then we create spaces for others to perform, to share their hearts and souls. And then we share our hearts and souls. It's like, that's just magical. Like, that's beautiful. That's something so profound and rich, you know, is that like we find these ways to tap into this like pure essence of our soul. And then we go share that with others. Like, that gives me energy. Like last night, I was working on the music bus, and my old manager from one of my old works brought a trans young person to come down. They've been having a really hard time, and the vibe was so good. They immediately got up, sung a song in the booth, recorded a tune. Aww. They left beaming. And to see young people just leaving beaming when they're having hardship, you know that like everything in life is interconnected. So as that young person heals part of themselves, it's like it heals a part of old me. When I was 12 and I never had anywhere to go to be accepted or to express myself. But here we are paving the way for the next generation.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like a massive part of what kind of like has led you to being strong, and what your passion is basically community. Right. So yours is everything is very collaborative. It's about others. It's about giving to others, getting from others. And it's so interesting actually, you saying like when you want to be a performer, like whether it's rap or reading or poetry, when you're standing in front of an audience, whether you're someone giving TEDx talks or whatever, you're so right. The audience acknowledging you is almost like it's healing a part of, like you said, in your family, you had to have a big voice around the table and you had to fight to be heard. Yeah. And if you didn't fight to be heard, you're sat in the corner, you're not there, you know? So actually it's almost like it's healing a part of your childhood that was fighting to be acknowledged. And it's like you're now as an adult making up for it by receiving that, like from strangers or an audience or your community or whatever. So that's mad interesting, because I always did think like I love being an artist. I do love performing. I'm not crazy about it, but I don't mind it. But there's a part of it that I've always been uncomfortable with. And actually performing with you gave me so much of my confidence and encouraged me to go on stage, and you taught me how to host. Like I remember we'd be on stage and you'd be like, be nice to the audience, be kind to the audience, like always. And I was just like, oh yeah, okay. Or you'd be like, speak up or move forward, babe, or whatever. Like you did that so much. Like, but I think my uncomfortability with performing is I feel like it's so narcissistic. There's a part of being an artist that I always find like, I'm like, why are we standing here asking all these people to validate us? Ugh. Like there's that part of me that feels so weird about it. So I could be at a festival doing a performance, I'm in the middle of it, and then suddenly I'm having this internal conversation with myself going, man, you're so weird. You're standing here wanting everyone to clap for you. Like it's just so weird. And I don't know like what it comes from, but I actually feel like as we've chat about it, I just noticed the clock's at 11:11. Is that 23:11? Yeah. I was like, rah. Synchronicity, not coincidence, innit? But
that's what we're here for.
I always just feel like maybe actually it is connected to a part of your childhood where maybe there was definitely times where I wanted to share something or whatever with my family, and I think they just really weren't about it, and they were just like, oh, okay, man, just hurry up and get on with it. And maybe it stems from something like that. You're right. A lot of the stuff we probably do as adults is connected to healing your inner child, I guess. Mm-hmm. If that's what you're saying, like even with the trans young person coming on the bus and stuff. That's so interesting. Okay, so lyrically challenged, rapping, doing your thing in that sense. What happened that you were like, I'm going to write a book about my life?
So I started writing my book like 10 years before it got published. Okay. One of my ex-girlfriends, I'll just be telling her all my story and she would just be like, babes, you just need to write these down. So she buns weed, innit? So she always slept later than me. Okay. So I was always awake earlier than her. So I'll just like sit down and be writing while she'd be sleeping. And then I'll just be writing like out all these stories, and I just wrote them how I spoke. And at that time I was homeless, so I was living between house to house, and I just had this big fat collection of like notebooks that I took everywhere with me, like no matter where I lived. And I remember I always used to put my stuff in bin bags. Like I don't know why, but whenever I'd move, I'd have all my clothes and my books in bin bags. Like I'm like a bin person. But you know, it's like now if I'm ever moving again, my stuff's going in boxes. I'm progressing from bin life. But
I hear that. Honestly, when me and my mum got evicted as well, we had some boxes, but my mum kept giving us bin bags and like Tesco bags and stuff to put everything in. So I do remember we were literally outside, homeless, outside our evicted yard with like 20 bin bags and like 5 boxes. I was like, I don't know why.
Why did we do that? I don't know. Boxes aren't available to us.
I just feel like do they think it's just easier to carry, or maybe I don't think they were prepared enough to. When I worked in Sainsbury's, these posh couples used to come in and go, hello, hiya, in Muswell Hill. Do you guys have any boxes? We're moving in 2 weeks, so can we come and collect them? I was like, rah, these lot are so prepared. They're coming from 2 weeks before to collect bare cartons. to put their stuff in, to label it and tape it up and everything. Here we are just stuffing everything in bin bags.
Here we are putting it in bins. Doesn't it show that we think our life's rubbish? It's quite symbolic.
Oh no, don't. That's so sad.
But if you deep it, if you deep the symbolism,
that's so deep
of how one is regarding one's own life. So yeah, all my stuff was in bin bags. I had all the books. But yeah, I got heavily involved in hip hop. Then I got involved in Morning Gloryville, the sober morning rave movement. So I was hosting that for 5 years. So I was like standing in the center of a couple of like really incredible community spaces. Like Morning Gloryville was sick. Like we did Ministry of Sound and Oval Space. I got to live out like some of my biggest dreams, performing with like Fatboy Slim, Roger Sanchez,
amazing.
Groove Armada, you know, just like Basement Jaxx and the Shard, like in the morning with unicorns and all kind of like amazing things, like up in the air, having a party at 5 a.m, like levels, like living a dream, you know, things that I only dreamed that I could have ever created when I was in my blocks back then. But then after all that finished, Morning Gloryville wrapped up, Passing Clouds got shut down, which is where we had our residency, and I was like, yeah, it just felt like the time for Lyrically Challenged had passed. So I was like, let me let that go. And then I thought, I wonder what happens if I'm not putting into community for a minute and I start putting into my own career.
Right.
So I had met this woman. I had met the CEO of Penguin, but I met her basically because her daughter, who's now the head of Camden Council, wrote a book about like youth culture, and she put me in her book.
Okay.
And then her mom wanted to meet me, who's a baroness, because she wanted to talk about me in the House of Commons.
Wow. About
people who have grown up in poverty but still managed to find creativity.
Okay.
So she was using my life as an example in the House of Commons. So then like, but she also happened to be the CEO at Penguin. So her name's Gail Rebook. And then when I looked her up, like she's in like the top 10 most powerful women in the country. And I'm just having like hot chocolate with her in Camden, having a chat about her daughter's book.
Right.
So I sent a few extracts of my book to Gail. Gail was like, wow. And then Vintage Publishing started talking to me. So I started having some conversations with Vintage Publishing. And then I performed for Own It, who are an independent brand, at the Stoke Newington Literature Festival with like Chester P, Selena Godin, couple other Reveal, couple other people. And then Crystal, who's the CEO of Own It, gave me a book called Prisoner to the Streets, written by one of their first artists.
Is that Robin Travis?
Robin, yeah. He's not with us anymore, but I read that book and I was like, damn, because I read it, and I thought I had ops and everything. I was walking down the street thinking like, who's coming to me? The book was so deep, like I was so in it. So I was like, these people are sick. Like there was no compromise in his voice.
Yeah, because he wrote it was one of the first books I read that he wrote exactly how he talks, like how he would talk, or how we would just chat like on road normally. Yeah. It was
So then I sent a few extracts from my book that I'd like typed up like back in the day, like 10 years ago. So I'd sent a few to Penguin, which got me some meetings with Vintage. Then I sent a few extracts to Crystal, and I immediately got signed by them. So
amazing.
After I sent her like 5 extracts, she sent me a contract, and I was like, whoa, it took me like a month to sign it. And then I had my book launch like maybe not too long after. I got all my material together, finished writing a few extra things. Crystal put it all together, and then bam, put my book out.
That's it, and you're suddenly like in Waterstones, like it's just
it was like nationally in bookstores, in Foyles in Charing Cross, like not far from here. It was in like Book of the Month. Like I've gone into Foyles, it's like highlight of the month book.
I
like,
love that.
It was
that's
such
incredible.
a mad experience. And also, like, you know, my mom, like when we were growing up, was like, I'm gonna write a book, and when we're rich from my book. And you know, like she experienced so much abuse in her life that she never got the opportunity to like make the most of that gift. So it was like I got to take that gift that she gave me and do something in her name, like in her legacy, like the best parts of her. Yeah. So publishing the book was more than just doing that as well. It was also like a homage to say, Mom, you did some good stuff too. Yeah.
That's so deep. That's beautiful. I'm so proud of you for that as well.
Babe.
I remember going into bookshops and purposely asking for your book for time. I'd go in and be like, do you have moments of significance? Just so that they would I don't know why. I'm so into like music and searches and algorithms. I was like, maybe the more they type it into their search bar, the more books they'll order from it. I don't know, but I was so gassed like at the time as well. So you know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, you kind of have to live so much life. You need to be older to write like an autobiography. Like, you wrote your life story very young, like in that sense.
Yeah.
So did you ever feel that pressure when you were writing it, like to be like, oh, I'm quite young to be writing like a life story? Or did you feel like you had so much to actually share from it? Like how did you like kind of giving yourself like the permission to share an autobiography at so young? Like, what gave you the confidence? Like, how did you feel when you were writing about your life? 'Cause I feel like if I was going to write about my life, obviously so much has happened. Everyone's got a life story, but I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if it's enough. I think it's just that feeling of, you know, when you were saying like with young people as well, it's like giving a sense of worthiness. How did you feel when you were writing it? Did you feel like it was enough? Did you feel like you had, because you have obviously gone through so much more than the average person. Like, yeah.
So like, when I was writing it, I wasn't writing it thinking, oh, this is going to be a book that's in bookshops.
Okay.
I was like in mad pain about life. And I was trying to process all the things that had happened to me and all the things that I had lived through. So I feel like when you're an artist and you're truly being an artist and you're at the core of who you are, you're not writing thinking about what the audience is going to think about it. You're writing because you've got such an urgency to express this part of yourself that you're not thinking, is this good writing? Is this bad writing? Is this going to reach your audience? Who do I need to reach with this? Have I got enough followers to make this happen? Can I do this? Like, you're not there. It's like I was in pain and I needed to have a painkiller. Taking drugs weren't helping. Writing was helping me. I had panic attacks when I wrote certain things. I was really affected after writing other things. I couldn't read over any of it.
Wow.
My publisher had to read over all of it. She had to edit it. She had to put, like, I couldn't even look at it. After I wrote it, I was like, I can't look at this. And you just have to take it from me. And it's been years since I'm even starting to become comfortable with that piece of work and being able to more stand in the power of it. Like, the further away I get from the reality of living through abuse and trauma and them things to being an adult that's very healthy and happy, the more I can stand in the power of that story and be like, yeah, like there's all, like, it's moments of significance because it's a non-linear story of all the significant moments, and every one of them, as you said, is the turning point. And if my life can serve as a source of inspiration for others to say, like, no matter what you've been through, you can transform it and you can be who you are, then it makes every experience I've been through worth it. And it's like, as an artist, you've got this opportunity to broadcast your ideas, and like, it's like having a megaphone and just sharing it out and beaming it to people's hearts. And it's like, your art is your medium to do that. So it's your ego that's going to have you thinking other questions like, is it purposeful? Does my life have meaning? But that's not artistry. Artistry, like the writing process, the craft thing is more when you go into that, is when you crafted it. But I couldn't even craft that piece. I just needed to give it to my editor to craft. So it was like, yeah, there was like a shared ownership of it then between myself and Own It.
Wow, I love that. So to wrap up, what has been your most recent turning point that has propelled you into like a space of happiness, big or small?
Oh, that's a big question.
It could be anything. It could be small, big, anything.
Okay, the other
What
day,
stands out?
I've been taking my niece to WAC every Saturday, which is the weekend's arts college.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time to be able to build this rhythm and take her.
Okay.
So this is really significant because she wants to be an actress and a singer.
Does she?
Yeah.
Okay.
So no one could take me when I was little. So I'm like gaslight every Saturday. This is my thing that I do. So I took her on Saturday, and they had the end of year performances.
Okay.
End of term performances. Yeah. The
Yeah.
end of this year, end of term. So I watched her act, and she was the most confident out of all the kids. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my God. And then when she did the singing, she did a solo.
Okay.
And her voice was so loud and so clear, and her singing was beautiful. I was bawling. She was just, I was like, babes, I can't believe how good you are. Oh my God, it's making me emotional thinking about it, because she was so amazing. And then to think, no, it's actually making me cry right now, because to just think, like, you know, like you put your time into someone, and then you just see them grow and flourish, and then become so confident. It's like, this is so worth my time. Like, what a good use of my time. And we can waste time in so many ways, but that is like my time well spent.
That's so beautiful.
I am actually crying.
Bless you, don't cry.
No, it's so emotional.
Cry,
I love her.
I
love her so much.
But do you know what? Also, the fact that you wanted to be an actress and you wanted to go down that road when you were little, walking around on your estate, and then again, as you have with so many parts of your life, you have again given opportunity to another human being to do that. And I just think that it's just so the epitome of you as a person. You're such a giver. You're such a caregiver. You're a caretaker. You are like a Care Bear. Literally, you literally look after everyone, and you always give opportunities. Like I said, I don't think I would have the confidence on stage, or to take risks, or to be inspired, or to be open-minded. You took me to my first Pride festival, where I grew up in such a homophobic school and environment. You took me to my first Pride. We've had conversations. You took me to my first open mic. You let me have my first performance in a collective. Like, you've done even so much for me as my friend in that sense. So I think watching your niece smash her performance is just like the epitome of like everything you do anyway.
It's everything. But I will say that, you know, I wouldn't be who I am without you.
Oh, babe.
No, because
this is so
no,
emotional.
babe, no, but not just as an artist. I'm not just inspired by you as an artist because your bars are sick. Like, you're just amazing. Like, every time I hear from you, like you just get better and better. Your flows, your delivery, your concepts, like your bars have always been sick. But to have someone like you in my life is such a blessing. Like, you're such a good human being, and your heart is so pure, and the way that you love people is just like, if you get someone in your life that can love you the way that you love people, you're on a good path. And your love has healed so much of me, and it's like our shared love of words, of poetry, of community, of people that has grown our sisterhood and grown the depths of this friendship over many years, that is so deeply healing, but that we get to pay it forward through art and through all these mediums for others to experience too. Like, what a blessing. So thank you for existing, being you, for doing this, for just being an absolute G. Like, I love you more every day.
I love you too. What an amazing wrap up for a podcast. Just became a declaration of love. But thank you.
Why not? Why not? Come on. This is how girls roll.
Emotional. But yeah, this has been the Turning Point podcast with myself and Shauna Briain, aka MC Angel. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for being here. Peace.